Hello everyone and happy Easter. Well, what an exciting video I've got for you here on this Easter Sunday, because not only is it Easter Sunday, it's also Solar Sunday. So, of course, it's always a special day at GavsWeatherVids when we do Solar Sunday. We only do one or two of these a year, and yeah, it's been a very long time since we did a Solar Sunday. I don't think we did a Solar Sunday since last spring, actually. So, exciting day, very, very exciting day at GavsWeatherVids, and I shall get on with Solar Sunday for you in a moment. We'll go through all of our trackers. We'll look at predictions for Solar Cycle 25, and then in the last few minutes of the video, we're going to be talking about Jupiter and Saturn. More about that in a few minutes. But before I get on with Solar Sunday, just to say that the first video released today was, of course, our quick 4-minute forecast. So have a look at that if you have not yet done so. We've got GavsWeatherVids Sunday Roundup coming up for you around or just after lunch. We'll be live streaming after 6 o'clock tonight, or at 6 o'clock tonight, and I think it'll be a little bit of a snow watch live stream, actually, that one, so it's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. We will show you some long range as well, as it's a Sunday live stream. We've got to, haven't we? But I think we'll also do like a mini snow watch as well. So that's all coming up today. Thank you so much to Richard Short for the fantastic GavsWeatherVids Solar Sunday special gift. Thank you so much, Rich. That's just for this video, so thank you so much for the gift. And also to James as well. James Acril, been a huge help getting all of the trackers together for this one also. So a big thank you to James and to Richard for all of the help on Solar Sunday. And without further ado, shall we do this? So we're going to start off, of course, we have to, don't we, looking at the solar disk on our side disk today from solarham.net. So we have got one tiny little sunspot region just there. Despite that, solar activity is at very low levels and is expected to remain at very low levels for the next 4 days. So here we go with the GavsWeatherVids Solar Activity Tracker, updated to the 3rd of April by a good friend, James Acril. Thank you so much, James, for updating this and all of our tracker charts. So the orange line is depicting each individual day's worth of sunspot activity, and you can see that we have been through a little bit more of an active phase over the past month or so. We've had regular sunspots, albeit at a very low level of activity, so they've always been really weak and small sunspots, but nevertheless we have been through a slightly more active phase. Up to like the 3rd, we actually had a couple of days without any sunspots, but we know that just now we have got another sunspot reappearing. It has got a little bit quieter though over the past few days, and that has been enough to allow our trend lines, the thick green and thick red lines, to begin to reduce. We did have this one massive uptick in solar activity back in November. It looks very strange, doesn't it? Within like very weak period before it and a pretty weak period after it. And we just get this ramp up very dramatically so, and then drop down as we go through November and into the beginning of December. More about that later on in the video. But that's how solar activity is currently shaping up in terms of the tracker going back to the early part of April last year. We can actually show you for this one, show you the extended solar activity tracker. It's going all the way back to 2017. So again with this, the orange line is going to be depicting each individual day's worth of sunspot activity, and the thick green and thick red lines are our trend line. The pink line at the end, the top here, by the way, is solar flux. The solar flux is kind of like the noise that is being emitted by the sun's energy. So a lot of people ask about the pink line. I very rarely mention it within like GavsWeatherVids because I don't have time. But on this, I will say that the pink line is solar flux, and that, of course, is kind of like the noise that's being emitted by the sun via its energy. So yeah, let's have a look at the extended tracker thing. So it goes all the way back to 2017. So you can see back in 2017, we was obviously having much more in the way of sunspot activity. You know, we were still coming off the back of solar maximum, which occurred in 2014. 2017 was really the year that we started dropping into solar minimum. So solar minimum kind of begins late in 2017, going into 2018, and then the solar minimum year itself is 2019. And of course, that's this year just here. And that carries on into certainly the first half of 2020. Through late 2020 into 2021, we get this lift up in activity. So you can see the way the orange line goes up here. That's that big sunspot spike that occurred back in November. Enough to lift the trends, black and the red line, lift them up. But I have dropped again, after that ramp up in activity that we had in November, which really was quite a dramatic ramp up in activity. Since then, we are dropping away again, and you can see we are at quite a low level of solar activity overall, despite that ramp up that we had very briefly in November. We're still really at the moment with solar activity, behind where we was in sort of 2017. So we have not sort of moved out of solar minimum yet. We're at the end of solar minimum definitely, and solar minimum occurred in 2019, but it doesn't look like we've yet gone back to sort of 2017 type levels, despite that ramp up in activity. Now, who am I today? Let's have a look and see who Gav is today. So it's Captain Gav. Captain Gav today from Rich. Thank you so much to Rich for turning me into Captain Jack. Wow, who would have thought it? Right, thank you so much, Rich. Stay positive. Yeah, that's what I tell myself every day, Rich. Right, so this is showing the spotless days and the current spotless stretch. So the current spotless stretch is actually 5 days up to today, I think. So we have had a 5-day stretch of spotlessness. That means that we have had 37 days so far this year, 39% of the year without sunspots. Comparable to last year that had 208 days without sunspots, that was 57% of the year. And of course our solar minimum year of 2019, which had 281 days without sunspots, that was 77% of the year. The last solar minimum before this was in 2008. That had 268 days without sunspots. So that was 73% of the year, I think. 2009, so the first year of solar cycle 24, had 260 days without sunspots, 71% of the year. And so really, we're comparable like 2010 now, the second year of the solar cycle, with 51 days without sunspots, which was, I think, 14% of the year. So that's kind of like where we're at right now. Comparable with 2010 at this point in the solar cycle. But actually a little bit weaker, than 2010. But of course, 2010 is like a full calendar year, and we're only up to April, up to the 4th of April. Thank you so much, Rich, for turning me into Captain Jack. Wow. Right, let's have a look at some of our trackers then. So this is how solar cycle 25 compares with solar cycle 24. So the orange line here, this is new. This is all new, by the way. All of these trackers now are incorporating solar cycle 25, I think, for the first time. Certainly for the first time in Solar Sunday. And so yeah, we're moving on. We're moving on into solar cycle 25, as this is like the first official Solar Sunday of solar cycle 25. So let's just talk about solar cycle 24. First of all, you can see that we began the last solar cycle in 2008. Very, very, very long solar minimum. It took a long time to pull out of that solar minimum. 2008, 2009, even into 2010, we have really weak activity. It's only very, very gradually moving upwards here. We get our first peak of solar cycle number 24 in 2011. Then we drop down through most of 2012 into 2013, actually, the solar cycle weakens, and then we get our second spike in activity, and this is our primary solar maximum occurring at the start of 2014. After which, of course, we start dropping down into solar minimum. We go into the declining phase of the solar cycle. Not linear, though. You see how some months are increasing and then dropping and then increasing, then dropping and then increasing and dropping. So it's not a linear process to come out of solar maximum and go into solar minimum. We get deviations month by month, but the trend is obviously clearly downwards. We reach solar minimum for solar cycle 24 in 2018, and particularly so in 2019. Solar cycle 25 begins at the end of 2019 into the start of 2020. And again, very weak solar activity through much of 2020. This is the spike that we had in November that does look quite strange and quite bizarre, really. It stands out, doesn't it? It stands out compared to early in solar cycle 24, and it stands out, you know, for like where we was just there, and then the quick ramp up, and where we are right now, which is down here. But you can see that overall, this is a relatively weak start to solar cycle 25, despite that dramatic sort of push up that occurred very briefly at the end of 2020. Despite that, you can see that actually this is a pretty slow start to the solar cycle once again, and it is fairly comparable, I think, to what happened in solar cycle 24, although that does look quite odd, you know, the spike that we get there in November 2020 does look quite strange. So this is how solar cycle 25 compares so far to solar cycle 24 and also to solar cycle 23. So this is quite interesting. This is going all the way back to the solar cycle before last, which begins in 1996. Solar cycle 23 begins in September 1996. You see how much more active solar cycle 23 was compared to solar cycle number 24. We know that solar cycle 24 was like the weakest solar cycle for 100 years at least. And just look how much of a disparity there is between solar cycle 23 with its two maximum peaks in 2000 and 2002 compared to solar cycle 24 with its two maximum peaks in 2011 and 2014. Very dramatic differences between the two solar cycles. And you see again with solar cycle 23 how quickly it ramps up, how very, very quickly solar cycle 23 ramps up, you know, gets going very quickly and just takes off and becomes a flyer, whereas solar cycle 24 is much, much slower to get going. Very slow, very delayed, and only gradually lifting up. Solar cycle 25, just here, of course, the blue colour is going to be solar cycle 25, looking much more like solar cycle 24 to solar cycle 23, I think. So let me know in the comments what you think. But I think the way the solar cycle has begun, despite that tick up that we have there, despite that, I think solar cycle 25 looks much closer to solar cycle 24 compared to solar cycle 23, which was a much more active solar cycle. So I still think solar cycle 24 will be more comparable, solar cycle 25 will be more comparable to solar cycle 24 and will be relatively weak. But let me know what you think in the comments, everyone. I would love to know what you think. This is how solar cycle 25 is looking for solar flux compared to the two previous solar cycles. So again, this is the solar minimum of 23-24, and this is the beginning of solar cycle number 23. Just here, remember, solar flux is the noise being emitted by the sun's energy. So again, you can see that ramp up, that tick up in activity, and then the drop backwards. So again, I think this is comparable. This is possibly more comparable to solar cycle 23. Actually, looking at that. So again, it's quite confusing, this, isn't it? But you see, solar cycle 23 did sort of have a quiet start for the flux. I mean, it gets a bit of a tick up there. Quiet start, gets a bit of a tick up there. Whereas solar cycle 24 is just flat. So maybe for solar flux, it does look a little bit more similar to solar cycle 23, actually, compared to solar cycle 24. Will we have a weak solar cycle for 25, or will we have a stronger solar cycle for 25? This is showing all solar cycles right the way back to number 1, incorporating now solar cycle number 25, which is indicated by the black line just there. I'll highlight it just there. So this goes all the way from solar cycle number 1 up here, right way down solar cycle 25 down there. So where we are, of course, we're at the very start of the solar cycle, comparable to the start of all the other solar cycles. Where we are with this solar cycle is just here. So it looks as though we're within the weaker cluster, doesn't it? If you think that this is like the top end solar cycle, this pink one just here, which is going to be solar cycle number 2, I think that's like the strongest solar cycle for this point in the solar cycle. This one is like the weakest solar cycle at this point. That is going to be solar cycle number 6, I think, back in the Dalton minimum. So it looks like, as we're starting off with this solar cycle, we are like within the weaker cluster, doesn't it? We're down there with like solar cycle 24, the last solar cycle. We're down with solar cycle number 6. It looks like we're down with solar cycle number 5 as well. So it looks like we're within like the weakest cluster, but we are only at the very start of this solar cycle, of course, really. But you can see how the strongest solar cycles, which are all of these ones up here, but just take off, you can see how most of them actually start off as they mean to go on. So most of the strongest solar cycles will start off as the strongest solar cycles, if you see what I mean. So it looks to me like this is going to be another weak solar cycle for number 25. This is how we look compared to like the weakest solar cycles, which is of course going to be number 5, number 6, number 12, number 14, number 16, number 24, the last one, and number 25. And we're not standing out, are we? We're right in the middle of the pack of the weakest solar cycles for this point in the solar cycle. Now, we could see something dramatic happening, and this black line will just take off and go up here. But I would be surprised if that happens. You know, we've already established, if we go back here, we've already established that, like, the strongest solar cycles start off very, very strongly up here. They'll all be up here. So we might, I mean, we could see this black line just suddenly lifting up, but it would be quite strange if we did, and it would certainly stand out compared to those other strong solar cycles. So where we are there, you will think we're probably going to do something more like that than do something like that, I think, anyway. But again, let me know in the comments what you think. But we're certainly not standing out within the weakest solar cycles. We're right there clustered nicely within the weakest of the solar cycles. And this is how we're looking in terms of solar activity going right way back to solar cycle number 1. This is the 11-year rolling average for mean monthly international sunspot numbers. So, of course, we've got the Dalton minimum standing out here. That's solar cycle number 5 and number 6. So you can see, but we have been in like a long-term decline with solar activity since like the middle of the 20th century, really, because we get this drop just here after the peak there, which is back in the 1950s, through into 1960s, 1970s, we get a drop, then get a bit of a lift up again through the 1980s and 1990s, but not getting back to where it was in the 1950s. And you see, since then, we've been generally in a decline with solar activity. That's where we are at the moment for solar cycle number 24 and on now, as we know, into the beginning of solar cycle number 25. So we are still comparable at the moment with where it was at the beginning of the 20th century, but not down at Dalton minimum type levels just yet. This is showing spotless days through the past 3 solar cycles and through the past 3 solar minimums, if you like. So you see that the number of spotless days peaks in 2019 just here. That's 2020 just there, and this is 2021 so far. That's comparable with like the last solar cycle, solar minimum, which is 23, 24, where we have spotless days peaking in 2008. That's 2009. That's 2010, just there. So those two, the solar minimum 23, 24 and the solar minimum 24, 25, they look comparable, don't they? They look you know, broadly comparable with one another. This is the solar minimum of solar cycle 22 to 23, just here. Far fewer spotless days during that solar minimum of like 1995, 1996. Far fewer, really standing out as being, you know, a very, very modest solar minimum compared to the solar minimum of 23 to 24 and the solar minimum of 24 to 25. So it all looks very comparable, this. I think solar minimum of 24, 25 looks very comparable to the solar minimum of 23 to 24. This showing number of days with geomatic storms per year. Again, this is going back into the 1990s, encompassing 3 solar minimums. So this is our current solar minimum just here, but we've just come out of. This is the last solar minimum from 2008, 2009, those sort of years, and this is the solar minimum before that, back in the 1990s, solar minimum, sorry, 22, 23. You see how there are far more geomagnetic storms in this solar minimum, during this solar minimum of 22, 23, compared to the solar minimum of 23, 24, and compared to the solar minimum of 24 to 25. So again, just backing up the idea that the way this solar cycle is performing appears at the moment to be much more in line with the weak solar cycle 24 compared to the stronger solar cycle number 23. Now, we know that the central prediction from NASA is that we are going to have another relatively weak solar cycle comparison, comparable to 24. So, again, this is showing like the prediction from NASA that we're going to peak somewhere around here in 2025, where that orange line is. NASA, NOAA, all predicting, you know, seen from the same hymn sheet, kind of comparable, very much so, to the maximum we have solar cycle 24, which remember was the weakest solar maximum for 100 years. There is a margin of error with that, so possible that we might go above that and like have a slightly stronger cycle or solar maximum than 24, or we might have a weaker one. If we have a weaker solar maximum than solar cycle 24, if we're down here, that would be our weakest solar cycle and solar maximum since back in the Dalton minimum. But the central projection is there, and that is very much in line with solar cycle 24 and well under solar cycle number 23. Remember, that's the central prediction. However, just in the past month, I think back in December, a new prediction appeared, but is quite dramatic. It came from McIntosh et al. More about it in a second. But this blue line just here is like the prediction of NOAA and NASA and those agencies that are predicting another weak solar cycle. That's the blue line just there. But this red line and the green line here is like the long-term average going back to 1750, which generally solar cycles, solar maximums will do something like that. And this red line is actually the latest prediction that was released at the beginning of December, or in December 2020, forecasting that we're going to have a really strong solar cycle number 25, totally at odds with all of the predictions that have been given so far. This is from Space Weather Live. A piece from 2020 saying a new study with novel method of solar cycle prediction has just been released last week. So they explain how this prediction was made. I haven't got time to go through it, you know, in this video, but I will drop a link to Space Weather Live. I'll drop a link to Space Weather Live in the description with the video. But essentially, this is the forecast that has been given for international sunspot numbers. This, again, is coming from, I'm not sure who this is coming from, where this is coming from, actually, other than it is McIntosh et al. Yeah, but the prediction with this is that we have our strongest solar cycle maybe for 50 years. So this orange line just here is the prediction but we're going up to here around solar cycle with solar cycle 25 maximum. In 2025, 2026, which is actually a little bit above where we was back here in the 1990s. So we go above that, and that means we have our strongest solar maximum, our strongest solar cycle for around 50 years or so. Look how that compares to like all of the other predictions for this solar cycle so far. It does stand out, doesn't it? I mean, we've got this, most of the predictions are sort of down here, which is for a very weak solar cycle. Indeed, sort of NASA is around here, I think, but it's well above that. It's well above that. Absolutely taking off with this solar cycle. Again, I have not got time, unfortunately, to go through how they have come by this prediction. It's all explained just here on this page, and I will drop the link to this page at Space Weather Live. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens with this solar cycle. To me, I think this all looks much more like solar cycle 24, and I'm still expecting like a really weak solar cycle, I have to say. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Maybe we will see something dramatic happening in the next week or two, if in the next month or two. If we are going to really ramp up this solar cycle of 25, it's going to happen very soon, I think. We will know within the next year, next 6 months, next 12 months, we will know if this is going to really take off or if it's going to be another sluggish solar cycle. So we won't have long to wait. If that prediction, let's go back to it, if this prediction is going to come off, there it is, then you see how it has to really start to fly to get to there in 2025. It's going to have to happen like within the next 6 months or so. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see, is it? But generally, most of the predictions are still for a very weak solar cycle, but that one stands out as like going for a very, very, very strong and big solar cycle number 25 and big solar maximum. So it'll be interesting to see. We've got a little bit more to show you. I'm going to pause the video there. I'll see you in a second, and we're going to be talking about the planets. We're going to be talking about Jupiter, about Saturn, and tying with the solar cycles as well. So I'll see you around 2 seconds' time. I've got a little bit more to show you. See you soon. Okay, we're back, and we're ready to resume Solar Sunday on this Easter Sunday. If you've enjoyed Solar Sunday so far, please can you smash your like button. Let us know in the comments what you think, and make sure you subscribe to our channel to see more Solar Sundays. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. Huge thank you to James and to Richard for all of their help on this video. Right, so I've got a little bit more to show you. Now, I want to go back to this, the GavsWeatherVids Solar Activity Tracker, and that big ramp up in solar activity that we have. It does look quite strange back in November. It really stands out, doesn't it, from the weak solar activity that we have before it and the weak solar activity that we have after it. It really stands out, that, doesn't it? Now, when that happened back in November 2020, it was actually coinciding with something that was taking place with Jupiter and with Saturn. So we had a super conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn occurring around this time at the end, in the latter stage of 2020. So I can actually show you this image, which shows that, again, how close Jupiter and Saturn are aligned with one another. You can see them just there. Again, it's been sent through by James. Thank you so much to James sending this through, the alignment of Jupiter and Saturn that we see there. In fact, Jupiter and Saturn were, the most closely aligned that they have been for several hundred years, actually. So the last time they were this closely aligned was unbelievably so, actually, absolutely unbelievable. The last time they were this closely aligned was in 1623, and before that in 1226. absolutely incredible that Jupiter and Saturn have not been that closely aligned with one another since 1600s and the 1200s. And again, we see a lovely image here of I think this would be Saturn just there with the rings around it, and Jupiter would be just there. So this could well be having this could well have had an effect on the Sun, and may through gravitational tidal forcing, which I have no idea what that is, but I'm told that gravitational tidal forcing may have had an effect with this alignment of Jupiter and Saturn on the Sun, and caused that very sudden and dramatic increase in solar activity. But we see just here again, let's go back to it, we see just here back in 2019. So this image is showing just how closely Jupiter and Saturn were to one another back on the 5th of November. So this is really cool, isn't it? This is like the Sun, of course, just here. We've got Mercury just there. We've got Venus just there. They're the closest planets to the Sun, of course. Here's our Earth just here. Here's Earth with its satellite very close to it. There's Mars just there. We've got Ceres just there. We've got Pluto just here. But look at Jupiter and Saturn lining up with one another, aligned with one another, just there. And as I say, the closest they were aligned since either the 1600s or the 1200s, which again is absolutely incredible to think of that. When you can see that later, so that's from the 5th of November. We see it from the 21st of December, which is of course the solstice. Again, you can see that we've got the Sun just here at the center of everything. We've got Mercury, we've got Venus, we've got Earth just here, and again we've got Mars over there right on the far left hand side of the screen. And again, look how closely aligned Jupiter and Saturn are with one another. There's little old Pluto on the far outer rim of the galaxy. But again, just look how closely we're lining up Jupiter and Saturn here. This is something completely different for GavsWeatherVids. We have never gone into like planetary alignments or anything like that. We really are pushing the boundaries with this. So let me know in the comments what you think. Now, this is how Jupiter and Saturn are aligned with one another as we look into the 4th of March 1228. This is how they line up with one another on the 4th of March 1228, which was the last time, one of the last times they was this closely aligned. Saturn just there, Jupiter just there, lining up closely with one another. And this actually occurs just before the Wolf minimum. So why this is quite interesting is that in 1226, when we have this very close alignment of Jupiter and Saturn, it occurs just before the Wolf minimum of 1280 to 1350. Now, in the Wolf minimum, we also get a very dramatic eruption of a volcanic eruption in Iceland. Now, you know we're currently going through this dramatic volcanic eruption in Iceland. And the last time this region of Iceland erupted, I do not know how to pronounce the place, by the way. So let's just say the Icelandic eruption. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce those places. But the last time this part of Iceland had such an intense and dramatic eruption, maybe the last time it erupted at all actually in this part of Iceland, was in 1350, and that places it just nicely with the Wolf minimum. So yeah, there might be a connection there. We know there is a connection to volcanic activity and to the solar cycles as well. And of course, we also have the alignment with Jupiter and Saturn that occurs in 1623 as well. Actually, on the 16th of July, I'm going to change that over. On the 16th of July, 1623, we get this again, this alignment of Jupiter and Saturn. So there again, we've got Saturn there, we've got Jupiter there, very closely aligned with one another. That's how they looked on the 16th of July, 1623. And this is interesting because this occurs just before the Maunder minimum. Can you see where I'm going with this? The Maunder minimum is a period of very, very low sunspot activity and solar activity that occurs between 1645 and 1715. So could it be, but what we're seeing here is like a precursor to something in line with either the Wolf minimum or maybe with the Maunder minimum. If we are seeing something here that, with this planetary alignment of Jupiter and Saturn, that is going to have wider impacts on the sun, and so it's like 30-40 years we start finding ourselves tumbling down into a new Maunder minimum. Could this be like the start of it? This is how the last 400 years of sunspot observations looks. I'm sorry if it looks a little bit blurred. This gets us right way back to before the start of the Maunder minimum, really. So Maunder minimum is just here, of course, 1650 to 1650, 1715 or 1730, something like that. So again, you can see how the activity from the early 1600s, which is already quite weak, just falls away into the Maunder minimum. Now that takes us, that's the Dalton minimum, just there, so cycles 5 and 6, of course, and that takes us up to where we are currently with solar cycle 24 and now just beginning solar cycle 25, and this looks kind of similar to where we are just there, actually, in a way, doesn't it? So could we be on the cusp of a new Maunder minimum? And if we were, what would be the impacts of that? Well, this is how the temperature anomaly looks during the period of the Maunder minimum, the annual temperature change from before. So for that period, like 1645 to 1715, look how much colder Northern Europe gets. So much colder across Northern Europe and across Northern America. Not everywhere it gets colder. So around the Pacific coast of America and Canada, it gets warmer, around Alaska. And in the North Atlantic, it gets warmer there as well. But certainly the impacts on Northern Europe are clear and stark and dramatic during the Maunder minimum. And this is the increase in mean sea level pressure as well, or this is the change in mean sea level pressure between 1680 and 1780. And again, you can see the change. What causes the cold weather into Northern Europe and Northern America is via blocking, an increase in blocking compared to the period before. And we see a massive increase in blocking there between 1680 and 1780. Now, that's not to say that we are going to go into a new Maunder minimum by any means, but certainly that planetary alignment of Jupiter and Saturn, which, as I say, may have in some ways helped to cause that big spike in solar activity that we had in November, but was not sustained. The similarity that we have right now between that alignment of Saturn and Jupiter to what happened in the 1600s and in the 1200s before the onset of the world minimum, before the onset particularly of the Maunder minimum, is quite striking and is quite interesting, I think. And I will say no more than that, and I'll leave you to decide what you think about all of this, because ultimately I'm just laying out the information, and it's for all of you to let me know what you think about all of that. But yeah, this is the most avant-garde Solar Sunday that we have ever done. I mean, we do push a boundary with Solar Sunday a lot, but to be talking about like the planets, and to be talking about Jupiter and Saturn and planetary alignments and all of that, that is really outside of my comfort zone. It was suggested by James at Krill as well, I have to say. So thanks to James for suggesting this, for pushing the boundaries, really pushing the envelope on this one. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it interesting. It's all food for thought. It's all food for speculation. But yeah, you know, this is definitely the most avant-garde experimental Solar Sunday but we've ever done at GavsWeatherVids, so I hope you've enjoyed it. And that is Solar Sunday for now. So we may get one more Solar Sunday in for you this year. It would be nice if we could. We said that last year and I could not fit it in. Didn't have time to do another one. So just watch out. We might get another Solar Sunday in at some point through the summer. Before the winter updates commence at the beginning of September, we may get another Solar Sunday in for you. But if not, then this is it. This is the one and only Solar Sunday that you will have in 2021. So a very, very special day and special video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please like the video if you have. Big thank you to James and to Richard for all of their help on this. I could not have done this without James and Richard's input. So thank you so much to Richard Trott and to James Ackrill. And yeah, thank you so much to both of you for this one. And that is it for Solar Sunday. Now, we're going to be back later on with GavsWeatherVids Sunday round. There'll be live streaming. You have to let me know what you think about this in the live stream. I'm sure it will create discussion and debate. So let me know in the live stream what you think about this very, very, very experimental and avant-garde Solar Sunday. But for Solar Sunday, on Easter Sunday, and at 40 minutes, that's all for now. And thank you so much for watching. See you later on for live stream and for Sunday Roundup. Bye for now.